People ask, well, Steve, what's the segment that you specialize in? And I finally landed on it, and it's a progressive-minded business leader who's recognized that if they're going to scale, they need to get their technology stack, the foundation, solidified and in place. And that means they have to choose technology that be able to grow and scale and adopt other unique technologies that's unique to their industry. And so what are they doing? They're searching for that platform that's open and that can scale. And guess where that is? That's HubSpot.
Yeah. And it's so funny. We didn't even rehearse that we both thought open-mindedness was the answer. It's almost like it gets, as a business owner, it gets to a point where I love using car shopping as an analogy. Just as you can tell by doing the limo analogy earlier, but like, if you're a business owner, it almost gets to a point where like, okay, I'm done buying aftermarket parts for this vehicle. I need a new vehicle. And that's kind of where HubSpot comes in, is when you're finally at that decision as a business owner saying, I need a vehicle that was crafted intentionally altogether versus one that was put together after the fact.
Yeah.
And that's the simplest way to put it.
Jim Tata, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Amazing, right?
As a salesperson, I was really impressed at the quality and the sales acumen that the HubSpot sales team has. It was really apparent that enlightened sales was in play at HubSpot. Mm-hmm. And then they designed this CRM that their salespeople use on top of that. It's like, if you think about you're wanting to implement some sort of sales CRM in your company, why are you thinking that? Well, I need data. I need to help my salespeople more effective. I need to create kind of a system so that everyone's selling at a higher level just because we're following a system. And then I need to document. So what can I predict my revenue with? There you go. That's the HubSpot CRM.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right in terms of sales enlightenment, and just to it's funny how everything's coming full circle, because you said it's hard to get a job at HubSpot, and I'm a channel account manager for all intents and purposes. I'm an individual sales contributor at HubSpot, but I'm a former sales manager of a Fortune 500 company. A lot of the people in my role at HubSpot are not your usual sales journeymen or journeywomen. It's a lot of people who we're former managers, we're former sales trainers, and came back to be an individual contributor, because being an individual contributor at HubSpot involves a lot of consulting, involves a lot of you need that management style experience to talk through that. So yeah, it makes me happy to hear that you've seen that, because a lot of the colleagues I work at who are individual sales contributors are former sales managers at other organizations.
So next question I get is like, why is HubSpot CRM free?
So we have our CRM that is free because it's a lot like Spotify. And it's so funny, when I first got hired by HubSpot, that was the first analogy they taught me, was they said, it's like Spotify. And I meant, how is HubSpot like Spotify? We're talking about a business CRM and a music streaming service. And they said, well, think about this. If you want Spotify free, you can get your core goals done in listening to music. Pick your artist, right? You can save some things, but not everything. You can't download. You can do what you need to get done, but it's very manual and not streamlined. And then all of a sudden you get a Spotify membership. You get unlimited skips. You can save more. You get the higher quality streaming. Same idea with HubSpot is that our free CRM is an excellent tool, especially if you're a solopreneur or, you're very strapped. It's an excellent digital Rolodex, and we have some excellent free tools that come along with that. Now, as you start to hit that ceiling of streamlining, okay, now I want to send more emails because I want to start doing, proper email marketing, or I want to replace some MailChimp. And okay, these leads are excellent that I have with HubSpot starter level, but now I actually need some automation because I don't have the bandwidth to follow up. Okay, time to go to professional and get some automation. So it's free because if you're scaling, we want to scale with you. And I always use the Spotify analogy tends to have people understand it the most. But I would say, I get on a lot of sales calls where folks are like, I love HubSpot. This is awesome. But we're just starting out. I said, no matter what, sign up for a free CRM and get in there and use that as your system of record. And then ideally you'll get the ROI on the level you're at, and you'll start seeing the return on that investment, pun intended with this podcast. And you'll start to, scale up as you need to. And that's kind of the idea of the freemium, as we call it.
When they rolled out the CRM and said it was free, I thought about it for a while. It's like for a couple of months, I kept asking myself, but what was the strategy of rolling out such a great tool that they could legitimately charge for? I mean, it's competitive with Salesforce and others, right? And
Sure.
and why? But why are they giving it for free? I kept asking myself, and then it kind of hit me. As an agency, my challenge working with a business owner is moving them from a marketing centric, website centric mindset into that we're actually empowering your sales process by designing assets across your platform to support your sales process. And it just dawned on me that by going sales first, getting set up in a CRM, you've just helped me set my business owners up for success, because now we're thinking, right, what assets should we create to support the sales process? Well, that would be something they would fill out a form and download. What would that be? Well, that's coming from a landing page. Now we're walking in backwards, and we're actually set our team up for success even better because we're thinking sales first instead of marketing first.
Right. And I talked about almost reverse engineering that funnel from what we need. And it's almost like you're reverse engineering, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is where we need help. So we know what our goals are. We know what we need to do to be a profitable business. Let's reverse engineer that with a number of meetings. And then, okay, we have our one-to-one metrics down, but how many leads how many conversions, how many marketing qualified leads do we have coming in? How can we fill the top of that funnel? And then once it's full, how do we turn that funnel into a flywheel so it's constantly feeding itself and we're delighting customers and there's referrals? So yeah, I think that's spot on in terms of, a good reason why we've probably made that shift in recent years.
Yeah, so smart. And, it just helps you think about what the activities that we're helping your team do is grow the value of your business, not just get leads. It's like there's all these other activities. We're actually building an asset that's going to be evergreen and valuable. And at some point, if you sell your company, think about this conversation. The person who's buying your company is going to go, well, how am I going to pay for this? Well, let me show you right here in our CRM. Look at this data here. Look at all these contacts that we have, contact records that are generated at least 3 or 4 a day. Then that drops into this follow-up system, and not everybody's at the same stage. So they're going to hang back and evaluate. Perfect. We've got emails nurturing, keeping them up to date on what's going on so that when they're ready, what do? They're going to raise their hand. And then when they raise their hand, it gets delegated to salesperson B.
And that process is automated through the workflow. Like that process is there. It's not like you're relying on someone to move those levers manually. It's so funny you talk about those metrics and what you need, and you're someone buying your business. I always watch Shark Tank, and you can tell, it's almost so simple. You can tell who has a CRM and who doesn't because they know their numbers. And Mr. Wonderful is always like, well, he's like, what's your average margin? How many customers do you have? What's your existing client? And what's your attrition? And I'm just like, when the people are rattling off numbers, like, oh, they're measuring that and they know. And it all comes down to what you've chosen to measure that. And if you know it. And I think a tool like a CRM, and HubSpot specifically, is excellent at getting you started and perfecting that for you.
So if you could describe the perfect person, perfect business owner that's a perfect fit to take advantage and exploit the tools that HubSpot offers, what would that person look like to you?
Yeah.
What would their company look like to you? Yeah.
Well, I almost don't want to put it in too much of a box from a size, but when I say, I find the companies that are most successful with HubSpot, specifically the decision makers or the owners, are the ones who are open-minded in the sense that they are not too hung up on previous processes or previous pieces of software. Obviously we can handle, we replace the big names all the time, but in terms of getting yourself set up, I find it's companies who want a crafted solution that's there for them. They don't want to be using duct tape to take old pieces of software and connect it to this and do that. It's an open-mindedness to your tech stack that will allow you to really streamline everything. I find CRM or marketing implementations that don't succeed are when companies are too hung up on previous software or outdated software or pieces of software that just won't connect.
Yeah.
I would say it's if I had to use one phrase, it's open-mindedness is
Love that.
the ideal.
The mindset. And I agree, because I always think people ask, well, Steve, what's the segment that you specialize in? And I finally landed on it. And it's a progressive minded business leader who's recognized that if they're going to scale, they need to get their technology stack, the foundation, solidified and in place. And that means they have to choose technology that be able to grow and scale and adopt other unique technologies that's unique to their industry. And so what are they doing? They're searching for that platform that's open and that can scale. And guess where that is? That's HubSpot.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. We didn't even rehearse that we both thought open-mindedness was the answer. It's almost like it gets, as a business owner, it gets to a point where I love using car shopping as an analogy. It's just, as you can tell by doing the limo analogy earlier, but like, if you're a business owner, it almost gets to a point where like, okay, I'm done buying aftermarket parts for this vehicle. I need a new vehicle. And that's kind of where HubSpot comes in, is when you're finally at that decision as a business owner. It's like, I need a vehicle that was crafted intentionally altogether versus one that was put together after the fact.
Yeah.
And that's the simplest way to put it.